Awkward dancing, loud voices, bad music, bad company. They irritated her enough to distract her from the other irritants in her life. She got to her feet, and Johnny gripped her hand to pull her through the crowd. People nodded to her and spoke her name as she wound among them. Most of them called her Bronwyn, because she was by far the youngest woman in the place. There were a few, men mostly, who called her Miss Morgan. They were the ones who would no doubt mention having seen her, stirring afresh the embers of her father's wrath. She smiled brazenly at each of them and flourished the cigarette holder. When the black bottom began, she threw herself into the steps, making her skirt swirl to show the satin garters clasped around her thighs. She liked the black bottom because it had no rules. The dancer didn't have to touch her partner. In the case of Johnny Johnson, this was preferable, and she was limited only by her own talent for movement. Bronwyn knew her personal faults very well, assisted in her understanding by her father's frequent reminders, but she also knew her strength, and it was dancing. The foxtrot, the rumba, the swooping steps of the tango all came as naturally to her as walking. It was what had first drawn Preston to her at the Bartletts' reception 3 years before. She had been dancing. On that day, in the summer of 1920, she hadn't worn garters or carried a cigarette holder. She had dressed in the most modest of afternoon frocks, a drop-waisted georgette with a scarf hem and a lace-edged collar with long points. She had recently cut her hair into the castle bob, and her mother had allowed her a touch of lipstick. She was 16, but she was certain she looked at least 18. She'd just been accepted into the Cornish school, and she was feeling very grown up, a young woman with the world at her feet and a shining future. Now, at 19, she understood that the younger Bronwyn had been as naive as a kitten. She had believed that an older man's attention, the shine of admiration in his eyes, the way he watched her every movement, meant he had fallen in love with her, and she had, dizzyingly, breathlessly, passionately, fallen in love with him. He was a decorated war hero. His family was even wealthier and more respectable than her own. His dancing made her feel like a creature made of cloud, swirling as weightlessly as a puff of mist. She was older and wiser now, and neither condition brought her much joy. She swung into the hip-thrusting motions of the black bottom, knowing that her father hated this dance. He said it was because he didn't like girls flinging themselves about, but Bronwyn understood it was the sensuality that offended him. She hadn't known the black bottom when she was 16. She wouldn't have understood it. Someone put another nickel into the piano, and a Charleston began. Without bothering to see if Johnny joined her, Bronwyn began the dance. It took more space than the black bottom, but people stepped back to give her room. The rhythm swept her up. She was adept at the sliding kick-step, the shimmy, the coordination of hands and knees and feet. Her heeled pumps skimmed the floor, and her beaded dress shimmered. Johnny tried to keep up, but his big body was awkward, and his efforts made her laugh. She knew every step, having seen all the films, with a pianist beneath the screen inventing tunes to match the dance. Bronwyn had invented a few of her own steps, too, which would no doubt soon show up at someone's debutante ball or engagement party. Someone else would have to demonstrate them, though. She wouldn't be invited to these events. Her parents had fooled no one by sending her to Vancouver. No one in Port Townsend would mention the matter in the presence of Chesley and Iris Morgan, but everyone knew their daughter was ruined. No matter how frantically she danced, no matter how many fallen angels she drank, she couldn't pretend otherwise. Still, she couldn't hate him. She had loved Preston Benedict. She was still in love.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.